Good day everyone, I am Princess Angela P. Ortega and I will tackle about the characteristic of abnormal behavior. But first, what is abnormal behavior? Abnormal behavior and deviance in the cross-cultural context have been raised for decades, undoubtedly fueled by the undeniable fact that what may appear to be entirely inappropriate and abnormal from one cultural perspective may be entirely normal and expected from another. So, the terms mental disorder, mental illness, and psychopathology are often used interchangeably by those in psychology and related fields. All of these terms are referred to the study of unusual or abnormal behaviors. Unlike terms and concepts in many of the physical sciences, this terms is not just a single term because this is a broad one to study. Remember that abnormal means away from the norm. And the word norm is related to the topic that I will tackle. Now, we will proceed on the discussion about the characteristics of abnormal behavior, namely statistical deviance, cultural deviance, emotional distress, and dysfunctional. But in this characteristic, I will only tackle about the statistical deviance and cultural deviance since emotional distress and dysfunctional will be tackled by my partner. Before we proceed and to understand the concept of statistical deviance and cultural deviance, let us know first what is deviance. Deviance from the dictionary is the fact or state of departing from usual or accepted standards, especially in social behavior. In sociology, deviance describes an action or behavior that violates social norms. Sociologists continue to struggle with defining deviance, what deviance is, and what acts or beliefs are considered deviant. Jerry Simons, PhD in 1995, sampled the general public for deviant acts. His sampling came up with 252 different types of deviance. Actually, somewhere in some way we are violating the norms or expectation of an individual, group, or organizations, right? Sociologists study the process of deviance, which consists of rules or norms being made, rules or norms being broken, and the reaction or expression by individuals, groups, organizations, and institutions to the breaking of rules and norms. Deviance is an act, beliefs, or condition that violate or depart from norms and are likely to generate negative reactions from an audience. And there is so much meaning or definition of deviance, and this deviance is complex and reaches across every spectrum of human life. This is why not one definition of deviance is agreed upon. And now, we will proceed on the first characteristic of abnormal behavior, which is the statistical deviance. Statistical deviance means that a behavior is abnormal when it happens infrequently in a particular society or culture. So, meaning of this, the behavior does not occur often in society. An example of this statistical deviance is all Filipinos are born with black hair. If one is born in blonde, he or she deviates from the general norm. And why she deviates from the general norm? Because all Filipinos are born with black hair. So meaning, when he or she is blonde, she deviates from the general norm. Or should I say, she is not considered as a Filipino. Another example of statistical deviance is only 1 out of every 100 people will get a doctoral degree, making them statistically deviant. However, we wouldn't call them abnormal. But why? Because he or she happens to get that doctoral degree while others cannot do it. But obviously, it is not abnormal. In statistical deviance, from the word statistic, remember that we are focusing statistically on the fact if one is considered deviant. In short, statistical deviance refers to behaviors that differ from average or normal experience. Deviants in the statistical sense engage in behaviors that the majority in a group do not engage in. So we have this mental disorder as statistical deviance. Statistical deviance, in accordance with mental disorder, is a perspective that has enormous common sense appeal as it involves defining abnormal behavior by comparing an individual's behavior to the frequency of occurrence of the same behavior in the general population. A behavior is considered abnormal if it occurs rarely or infrequently in the general population. This definition lends itself very well to measurement, as researchers and clinicians can administer objective assessments to clients and get accurate measurements of just how far their depression, anxiety, hyperactivity, and so on are from the norm. This definition is often seen as highly scientific. And we have this mental disorder as statistical deviance. And an example of this is people with very high and very low general anxiety would be considered abnormal. And another example is most people, however, would only consider the person with extremely low IQ to have a mental disorder. So we are considering the abnormality to having a mental disorder. And now we will proceed on the second characteristic of abnormal behavior, which is the cultural deviance. So behavior is abnormal if it violates the accepted norms of society. And we have this cultural deviance theory that suggests the conformity to the prevailing cultural norms of lower class society will cause crime. The mix of cultures and values created a small society with different ideas of deviance, and those values and ideas were transferred from generation to generation. An example of this cultural deviance is it is not considered normal to come to class in pajama or wearing bathing suit in the church. And the other one is slum dwellers are forced to violate the law because they obey the rules of the deviant culture in order to fit into their surroundings. I will not further explain the first example because obviously we are not wearing bathing suit in the church. We are wearing a normal suit or the preferred suit, but not the bathing suit. Same as with we are not coming to class in pajama because we are wearing school uniforms attending the school days. And obviously the pajama that it was talking about is the one that should be considered as sleepwear. And for the second example, people violate the general rule or the law of the Philippines just to obey their rules in a society they belong with. And that concludes my discussion. I hope you learned a lot from me. And by the way, the second characteristic of abnormal behavior will be tackled by my partner. So that's it. Thank you and God bless you. Once again, I am Princess Angela P. Ortega from Group 7.